Okay, so we will carry on in English now. Arie, welcome to BIZ conference, the biggest regional BIZ IT conference in this part of the world. Let's start this a chat or conversation with a simple question, but very complicated in the world we are in now. What is agile? What is agility for you?
Well, especially in this world, you know, if you have a one-liner, it's a corporate capability to respond to change. When the purpose of Agile is always avoiding any kind of delay, and then you lift it to a corporate capability.
Mm-hmm. Great. That sounds very good, but how did organization change from being in this time now to the companies and corporates of the future?
Well, the point is, I made a little drawing here, right? It's very important that you understand that when we wrote the manifesto, and this is, let's say, 20 years ago, almost 20 years ago, we were all working in waterfall situations, or at least, you know, I started my change in the mid-90s, and what we had in those waterfall processes, a lot of remote working. So a group of people works on it, makes a document, send it to someone else, and make another document out of it, send it to someone else again. And this ongoing process based on remote and written communication is what it was. And you have, because of this communication, remote and written, you know, there's always this, you know, interpretations and assumptions. You have a lot of misunderstandings, and you need to repair this. So that takes a lot of time. So you have a lot of delay, a lot of misunderstandings. There's a lot of inefficiency here. And you want to avoid that kind of thing, but changing this way of work is so deeply rooted in organizations. And if you want to make your organization, you know, ready to work like this, you really have to, you know, to change a lot. And I think that's the most difficult thing to do, changing those deeply rooted things. I can come back to it more if you like, but that's the biggest problem.
You mentioned the word change and the difficulties in change. What do you really mean by that?
You know, there's a difference between doing Agile and being Agile. And when I go, because I travel the world, I go into a lot of organizations. I see so many people trying to do Agile, but you see hardly any organizations that are Agile. And what I mean by this is, you know, you have this waterfall process where, let's say, an analyst hands over to a functional designer, hands over to a technical designer, hands over to a developer, you know, that kind of traditional flow. And we are used to this. We are used to sit behind the laptop and I do my little thing and someone else they do their little thing. And now all of a sudden you say, okay, we are working together. So I think the major difference from agile working to traditional working, you move away from individual tasks to team delivery. All of a sudden you are, you know, focusing. In the past, you know, an analyst would focus on his own analysis and sending it out to a designer. And now all these things are done by one team and they're focusing on one thing only, delivering value. But that means that you have to change organizations deeply. You know, you have the group of the analysts, you have the group of the designers, you have the group of the developers and the group of the testers. And now all of a sudden you bring them together, changing this and bringing empowerment into that multidisciplinary team where people can take decisions on the level of requirements, you know, what to make or what not to make. Not the value you want to achieve, but what you're making to get to that value. That's a massive change, and it requires change on the leadership level, decision-making processes, the way people collaborate and interact. So there's a lot of change that's going on in that direction, and that's if you want to, I can answer you more, but there's a lot of things that are deeply rooted in people that need to be changed, and that's the difficult part.
Mm-hmm. So let me get you back to 20 years ago when you decided that you want to change the work environment you were in.
Yeah.
You met with a like-minded people in 2001. Next year is 20 years of co-writing of Agile Manifesto. Why you met? What was the purpose of it?
Yeah, so you have to imagine that in 1994, so 7 years before, I was working at the Dutch IRS, the tax office, and I was working in a project, and like many projects, they were going wrong, over time, over budget. And the worst thing is, you spend public money, and there was not coming any value for the organization. And this organization serves the Dutch people, right? So I made in 1994 a very clear choice to start working in a different way. And my focus was, if we spend public money, how can I make sure that this money is delivering value? So, return on investment, whatever phrase you use for it. So I had in 1994 my motivation and also my moment for change. And the other people of the other authors of the Agile Manifesto, we were with 17 people in Salt Lake City in February 2001, made their own change and had their own motivation. I talked to James Grenning, is one of the other authors. He's very much focusing on quality. So I had a focus on value. He had a focus on quality. And he said, Arie, if we make something, it has to be good. If you have to, you deliver it and all those bugs are in there, you need to fix that. Basically, you create delay. So he made his change on the quality side in 1998. If you look other people, and I don't know for every single one of them, they maybe in the early 90s made that change. So let's say in the spread of a decade, all of us started working differently because we knew that waterfall way of working is creating problems by the way it is designed. The way the waterfall is designed, it creates problems. And then in 2001, there was really the urge to make a publication to the world. And you have to remember, Neno, in 2001, this internet is just this big, right? It's nothing at that moment in time. But we said, we have to make a publication to the world. And I remember being in that room and Ward Cunningham said, we have to make a wiki for this. And I had no clue at that moment in time what a wiki was. This is where we are, right? But we wanted to make a publication to the world. So there was this drive of 17 people to make this publication to the world. We didn't expect it to be this big where we are today. But there's a reason why it is big, right? If you want to, I can elaborate on this. There's a reason why it's big, but we wanted to make a statement anyway. And that's why we are there. And that's the motivation to make that change.
Yeah. So you mentioned you work in the public sector. That's very hot topic in the moment because there is a word outside in the world that Agile is only for IT companies.
Yeah.
So how the Agile fits in the new reality, working with the government agencies, how about public companies? How they can reap the benefit of working Agile?
Well, the problem, people often ask me, okay, if you would change the Agile Manifesto, what would you change? And I would take out one word, and the word software, because software doesn't do anything. It's the people and the way they use it that makes it valuable for companies and organizations. And you and I, and we all know that the way technology rules the world at the moment, we are all depending on technology. And it doesn't matter what you do, right? We are all depending on technology in any kind of business. The bakery store, I live in the countryside, 50 meters from my house, there are cows and sheep running around, right? The farmer is also depending, everybody's depending on technology. The government is look what happened at the COVID-19 crisis. Everybody is depending on and you look at this one, what we know in the past. Let's just a 30 seconds flashback to the past. It would be the analyst and the functional designer, the technical designer, the development and the tester. Then there would be maybe people from the business checking it, getting a lot of rework. And then when the people from the business were done, you would get the legal department, the marketing department, the operations department, the architecture department. All those people will say yes or no, and everyone would create a lot of rework. So Agile is doing it all together. It's not business and IT. For me, Agile is about business. You want to bring value. And value comes from James Grenning's high level of quality, so you don't have rework and you avoid the delay, so you have that valuable solution earlier to the market, all the way to selecting the right requirements that bring the value instead of the useless ones. And it's the same thing for, I don't know, if you look in your own country where you are, where I live, and anybody else, at this moment in time, the tax office in the Netherlands is, the way they run their business, it's IT technology oriented, right? So any kind of governmental organization in the COVID-19 crisis. You have to get, you need to get information. You will be linked somewhere to a website from a Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or the, you know, I try to travel. I want to travel to South Africa. I have all these regulations. There's only one place I can find them and where I can get them checked. And that's via the technical layer in society. So every kind of government, any kind of organization, leave the word government out, any kind of organization has to have that corporate capability to respond to change, because that technology is changing in a very high pace. So you need to be able to respond. Yeah.
Interesting. And I want to pick up one of the subjects you just talked about it. And this is fascinating for me, that when I worked for last 15 years connecting business with new technologies, how are you doing in it? How you connect people, considering that the corporates are huge, they work in silos. So what exactly you do to connect those people to deliver on time without delay and within a budget?
The most important, you know, when I look at this, right, this is, we call the remote and written communication. People sending documents to each other. This is what is not working, right? So what you need to do is, you need to, and it sounds so simple, Neno, you need to put people together at the table. And then you have to empower them, because if those people are sitting at the table, but they have to ask someone else all the time, is this okay? Is this okay? That doesn't work, because then you have to send it out, you have to wait, and then you have those misunderstandings in the communication and the waiting time. That doesn't work. You have delay on delay on delay. So you bring people together at the table, and that's part of the transformation process. Becoming an agile organization, not doing a little bit of agile, but becoming an agile organization and really getting the corporate capability to respond to change, means that you get those people from the silos and you bring them together and you empower them. And as an organization, you tell this team, hey, this is the value that we would like to achieve. And I want to give you an example that I bumped into a while ago. I was sailing the North Sea from the Netherlands. You know, we crossed to the south of England, and then in the middle of the night we decided we wanted to have a dinner in France, in the north of France, the next day at 8 o'clock in the evening. And the skipper set the course, right? So you have 6 people on a sailing boat. The skipper has one of those big maps. He makes this zigzag line. This is how we sail, you know, because we have the current and the tide and the wind. And I took the first shift with a friend of mine. And then at 6 in the morning, because we had a 4-hour shift, at 6 in the morning, I went to bed. At 10 in the morning, I came on deck again, and the wind dropped. And this is typically what happens. And this is the pace in which things happen. Look at the COVID-19 crisis. It hit us, you know, almost in a couple of weeks. The world was completely changed, right? So you need to be able to respond to change. And if I'm sitting on my sailing boat and I have to send out the request for change to somebody who is a manager who hasn't been sailing for the last 5 years, and he will tell me where, and I know where I am, and I know what's happening, and I know where to go, right? And the skipper knows how to set the course. Empower the team. But that empowerment is the difficult part, because that changes people's roles. The people in the delivery teams, you know, they decide how to sail. As long as you get to the north of France and have dinner at 8 o'clock, you know, it doesn't matter how you get there. That's the point to understand. But it requires, you know, courage from people to take that responsibility. It requires courage from managers to say, okay, people, I trust you to get the job done. And that's the part where we focus on in changing. You know, it's a paradigm shift, right? The world, in the past, you would tell people what to do. Now you expect them to know what to do, and you just facilitate them to be able to do so. And that's a major difference.
So you talk about the teamwork, and I really believe that the team is in corporate transformation on a much bigger level. And usually when you say teams, they think about IT teams, the sales team and the marketing team, but it's all in your way has to be connected in some kind of rituals. So everybody has right information in the right time. When you look into your integrated agile transformation model, what you are using to help facilitate making those big teams, corporate teams, so that information can flow directly from the teams to the stakeholders.
Yeah. I'm making quickly a drawing to make this clear to you and also to the people, of course, who are watching this. What is very important is that you have to get the people together. So a delivery team is a team that covers all disciplines needed to make something, and also all disciplines that can either accept or reject something that the team made. And this is really important that you have this. And what we do, and this is one of the biggest changes that we make. Normally, you would have, like I just made a drawing in the waterfall, you would have a group of analysts and they make an analysis and they send it over and they let it go. They go do something else. And then the functional designers make a design out of it and they send it to the technical designers and they start doing something else. And what we say, we bring those people together. And this is where you are focusing on. So we have people from the business, we have people who are able to develop or test and analyze. We have people, we call them the Scrum Master, right, who take care of the team. And you mentioned the word rituals. You put people at the table. And the most important one that we have is what we call the heartbeat. And there's a nice book, I think it's from Donald Reichenberger, that's called Fast Feedback Pays Off. And what you do is in the heartbeat is that, first of all, you define intervals of 2 or 3 weeks where you say, I'm going to deliver little bits and pieces. And we make those, but we put them in production. It's not making an analysis, no, from a paper description into delivery and operations in a couple of weeks. So you don't do a big delivery, but you split up a smaller business and you bring them live. But to make sure in that window, let's say that you do every 2 weeks a delivery, you want to make sure that when you're at the end of the 2 weeks, that those people are happy and that the people from the legal department and from the marketing department and from operations or security are also happy, right? That they say, okay, you can go live, man, this is good. So every 2-3 days, you just show what you've made since the last heartbeat. You get a little bit of feedback. You look at the feedback and you know where it's really needed, you change and adapt. So you build this. Now having this in this heartbeat going with people, look at this, right? If you see what is happening, we have the legal, the marketing, the operations, we have architecture, whatever people, and then you have the business people who need the solution, people who make it, and they are working. And this is a frequency of every couple of days, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes together. A massive difference. We build those teams. When we go into transformation, we build those teams. But I want to explain the difficulty because it sounds sometimes, oh, that's easy. And how come so doing it as a transformation is so difficult? Number one, if you do something that you didn't do before, you have to learn. So you make mistakes in the beginning, right? That's an easy thing. We know this, but accepting in a professional environment that you change and therefore, you're not, a super professional, or you have to learn, is very difficult to accept. So you need to accept this one. And I want to give you the metaphor with driving on. Before this talk, I was in an interview with someone from Australia. You know what they do in Australia? They drive on the left side of the road. Yeah. I'm from the Netherlands. I drive on the right side of the road. Now here we go. This is the metaphor that I want to make. You can teach me how to drive on the left side on the road. But I have never done this before. So it's new. I'm used to driving in the right side of the road and it looks a lot the same. But the rules for preference are different. Where you have to look is different. Where, other people in traffic are coming from is different. And the big problem is that as long as everything is going the same, and as long as I'm on my own on the road, nothing will happen. But when an idiot comes from the left or the right and does something that I've never seen before, my reflex is still based on driving on the right side of the road. And I need to build new reflexes because I work in a completely different way. And what people tend to do in any kind of transformation process, and also in an agile transformation process, is, oh, it goes wrong. I have to find a solution. They start looking in their brain, and the only solutions they have are solutions from the past. And I have been in situations literally when we did an agile transformation, it was successful, working well. 2 years later, I come back, they use all the agile words, and they were completely waterfall again. So if you go into that kind of transformation, we focus on those kind of teams. We have those rituals. The heartbeat is just one of them. And we work very intense with the leadership teams because the leadership team themselves have to role model agile behavior. They have to do it themselves. They have to facilitate that change process, like breaking those silos in the organization. And once, you're going into agile working, they also have to facilitate sustaining that change by making sure that we don't step back into old reflexes and bring in agile coaches to help an organization do it. Now, this sounds like heavy. You think, oh man, this is a big job. Yes, an agile transformation is not an easy job. But the point is you have to be able to do this agile way of working, because it's so demanding, right? The world where we're in, the changes that we have are so demanding. We need to do this. And that's what people need to get in. And I think COVID made that more clear to anybody. Technology and innovation already, but COVID is like, within weeks, business models gone, right? So you have to invent a new business model for your company or you die. And this is where agility comes in.
So when I listen to you, I have a few words in my mind. So it's mindset in order to change, so not delay the projects and deliveries you have. Would that be correct to say?
Yeah, I think the mindset is the magical word. People can call it culture. If you define culture as a set of habits that a group of people share, and you know that the waterfall is the culture in an organization, okay, we have to change the habits. That is a massive mindset change. And I would like to shine a little light on this, because the old ways of working, the waterfall is very often deeply described in all sorts of manuals exactly how to do. So this is another paradigm we have to shift. We are used to have somewhere described exactly how to work. And agile is liquid, because we continuously innovate and improve. The world doesn't stay the same, so you have to adapt continuously. So it's not only changing so different kind of working, but also accepting the fact that it's not in detail described for the next 5 years how we work. We continuously adapt and innovate. And that's something that needs to be facilitated by the organization, but it's sometimes a big step to take. An agile transformation you take in baby steps.
So let's go back to Serbia. We have a thriving startup scene, amazing growth in the last couple of years. A few companies gone global. A lot of companies do services for the big companies abroad. But we still lacking possibility to show what we know on the global market. You work with a Serbian company for 2 years. What is your experience and what is your advice for the newcomers helping other global players into the agile transformation?
Okay, so I think you have to believe in yourself to make things happen. And what I saw working with people from Serbia is, when you do a transformation, you need to have the courage to be disliked, because you bring change and people don't like when you bring change, right? So because people want to stay the same. So what I know is that in Serbia I see a great level of education, so the knowledge is there. I see the Serbian passion and energy going in, and in this kind of work, because I cannot talk about the whole wide world, but in this kind of work, especially what I do, things like perseverance and passion and energy are so important to make the success. And I do work still, with Serbian people for this reason. And I think it would be good to make that a little bit more clear to the outside world, that you can do this and that you have done this, right? And that would be also, in terms about the digital transformation where we are in. I think everybody has already transformed into digital, but it's just improving all the time. This is also the moment, if we talk about government right before, when governments take on their own digital transformation, and you do it in a proper way, and you can do it with a high level of quality. So if those governments work agile and they can bring in that digitalization and they can become a role model in the world, it would catalyze the impact of Serbian product services companies into the global market and make you very visible. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Arie. I could talk with you for hours, but we are limited with the time. So I will give opportunity to public, online and offline, for the questions. So if there's any, please come in.
We heard you quite well. Any questions here? Odnosno, imali pitanja neka? Za sada ne. Čini mi se da se malo plaše ovde da postavljaju pitanja. Arie, I give you great opportunity you to ask a question for the audience.
Oh, you're bouncing it back to me. Okay, what I would like to ask people from the audience, if someone can explain, if because across the globe, wherever I go, most organizations are doing at least a little bit of agile somewhere in the organization. And can anybody tell me, where are you in your agile journey, and what is the thing that you bump into at the moment? What is the thing that you like to see fixed? What is the problem that you think, okay, that's on our plate at the moment?
Sada da vidimo ko će da odgovori na ovo pitanje u publici, da vidimo ima li dobrovoljaca, a ukoliko neko odgovori, dobit će i nagradu. Evo, pošto smo rekli da ćemo imati danas jedan nagradni kviz. Sorry, Arie, I'm speaking in Serbian with people. Here in conference room, we have one competitor. He will give you an answer. Može na srpskom slobodno, kako god je lakše.
Probat ću. Hello, Arie. My name is Alexander. I am trying to implement an agile system in my company. We're accountants, and first of all, the problem that I have is lack of any kind of literature, or maybe I didn't search it quite enough. Written in Serbian. Also, the people have in my daily conversations have little or none knowledge about implementing agile system into a workspace. So those are pretty much the problems. So some kind of resistance coming from people with who I try to implement with, and based basically. The majority of resistance comes from not having any or enough knowledge about it and how it works.
Alexander, unknown means very often unliked, and that's the point. I honestly, I don't know about publications in Serbian. I know there are books for sure translated in Serbian, because some of the people that I know translate in almost every language their books that you have. But I think I understand your point in terms of resistance, and it's not that people don't like the good, but people have the comfort zone, and they like to stay in that comfort zone individually. People are, because that's what that feels safe, right? And really changing it makes it makes it difficult for people. Now, what you need to understand and what you need to ask yourself, and I'm not even asking it you, but the people that are resisting, is, okay, how well are you doing? Please understand that in this digital transformation, competition is not just the guy next door like in the past. In this digital transformation, the digital highway facilitates organizations from all over the world. And before you know it, you have competition from a country you didn't even know that it existed, right? So you need to be there. You have to understand that products and services are volatile. You make something and within a couple of weeks, a couple of months, it can be obsolete, and you need to be able to respond. I like to make the example with my brilliant. I love my phone. Right here it is. I buy a new phone every 2 years. And after 2 years, performance really goes down. It's time for change. Some people buy a new one every half a year because it really offers new technology. 30 years ago, you would have a phone for 15 years, right? And it would be a landline, same kind of phone. This is just an indicator of what technology does to us. And in your line of business, in the accountancy, because I started my career in the accountancy, I worked for Ernst & Young in 1987 in the Dutch branch of Ernst & Young called Maretta Limper. We already at that time were highly relying on technology. We worked on the Apple platforms, on the Macs at that time. And you see that the fintech business, the whole business in the finance and technology business is moving to this agile way of working, with banks like the ING and ABN and the Rabobank, with BNP Paribas, Société Générale. They're all transforming because they know it's not just the technology that brings you different ways on how to do your job. Well, they offer you, easy things to do, but what the technology does, it disrupts entire business models. I want to give you one example, Alexander, and then I stop talking. We maybe can give another person time for a question. But I was talking to a gentleman on the board of a big telco in Europe. And for me, 15,000 people is a big organization. So this gentleman is on the board. It's a board of 9 people responsible for this 15,000 people organization. And he is responsible for innovation. And I was talking to him about Agile. And I looked at him and I said, you know, in 1994, you were making your business by selling standard landline phone call minutes. In 2004, you were making your money by selling old school SMS text messages to the market. In 2014, you were making your money by selling internet access to the market. And I looked him in the eye and said, 2024, you don't know. And he looked me in the eye back and he said, Arie, 2020, I don't know. The point I want to make, this is 2 years ago, 2018. This guy knew exactly what was going on. And he knew that technology, the innovation goes in such a pace. And if some smartass identifies a new product, a new solution, your business model can be completely obsolete in months. One of the big telcos in my country in, I think it was 2009, I think. This is the moment where they were making their money with SMS text messages, right? That's what they did. WhatsApp came into the market. This was an organization with 12,000 people. WhatsApp was an organization of just 50 people, right? And they put their WhatsApp product on the market. Within 3 months, this telco was on the edge of bankruptcy because their income dropped in 3 months from what they had to maybe 5 or 10%, because that's where they made their money. And this is just one example. We can talk about insurance. We can talk about the travel agent. It's whatever. Business models are disrupted. This is what technology does. COVID makes it even worse. So your company needs to have that change as well. Otherwise, you will be out of business before you know it. It's sorry to say, this is what technology does. We are living in a world of change. Maybe I can quote Winston Churchill. I don't know if you like the guy or not, because there's some debates about him. But he obviously said something like, perfection is not a state, perfection is an ambition. To reach perfection, you need to change a lot. So perfect people change a lot. Take that into consideration.